cradle of the slot machine industry was San Francisco. The gold rush attracted thousands of people from the East. One inventor who was drawn by the permissive climate of San Francisco was a German immigrant named Charles Fay. Gustav Schultz was another German immigrant who had received an early patent for counter-wheel payout machines in August 1893. In 1895, Fay invented the first floor model slot machine, which he named the 41144. In 1896, Fay went on to establish his own slot machine factory. He began producing coin-operated machines, which he franchised to saloons and cigar stores. Fay created the first cash-paying poker machine, named the Card Bell, which he later revamped into the Liberty Bell. This three-reel machine grew so popular in 1897 that its name became synonymous with the term slot machine. Within 30 years, 1 million machines were operating throughout the world. The popularity of the bell slot came from a suspense factor induced by watching 3 reels stop in succession. It had 10 symbols per reel, creating 1,000 possible combinations. The largest win was a combination of 3 Liberty Bells, which paid out $2 in nickels. Only 3 of these machines are known to exist today. Floor model slot machines were fashioned in oak cabinets with nickel-plated casings and a brightly colored payout wheel. These machines had a voracious appetite of 5 to 10 coins. The first of these floor models was the Mills Vending Company's single-coin Kalamazoo and the 5-coin Owl. Herbert Mills recognized the lure of gambling machines in saloons and cigar stores, so he began to manufacture his own versions of Fay's machines. His Chicago factory produced 100 machines daily, and by 1927 was one of the largest factories in the country. The Mills Liberty Bell was a copy of Fay's basic mechanism with a few cosmetic changes. It had a more ornate cast iron case, larger reels to incorporate 20 symbols instead of 10, and an enlarged payout window that showed 9 symbols instead of 3. Mills's success lay behind his sales through advertising and his low prices. The Cayley brothers of Detroit manufactured high-quality machines like the 6-coin floor machine called the Puck in 1899. Watling, Jennings, Pace, and Bailey were other companies which joined the flowering slot machine industry. Most companies had branch offices in cities like San Francisco, where the popularity of coin-operated machines was beginning to be considered a problem. The moral dissent against gambling in San Francisco began as early as 1893, when a $3 quarterly tax and license requirement was enacted. An 1898 ordinance separated cigar machines from amusement machines and outlawed machines which paid out in money. Operators circumvented the law by substituting payouts in trade checks redeemable in merchandise. These small countertop machines became known as trade stimulators.
Not all machines had fruit symbols. Some machines, trade stimulators, came with cigarette symbols, and they corresponded with the pay card of cigarettes. These type of machines would be in candy stores or tobacco stores. And when people got change from whatever they bought, they would put the penny in the trade stimulator. They would always get a piece of gum that you don't eat. And you would look at the reels, and if the 3 types of cigarettes would line up, you would read the pay card, like 3 Lucky Strikes. The bartender or candy store man would give you a pack of Lucky Strikes or Camels, or the bottom one is Spud cigarettes. You get 10 packs. They would give 10 packs because there's probably one symbol of Spud cigarettes on each reel, and that's why it would be harder to get. The same thing like with a full-size slot machine, getting a few bars, of course. These didn't vend money at all, only gum. They were called trade stimulators to stimulate trade. They're made out of cast aluminum, both of them. came with fruit symbols or with cigarette symbols. They've also had them with either with 3 reels on them, they have them with 5 reels on them, and the tapes on that would be a girl's name that you would try to spell out, or horses, and you try to put the pieces of a horse together, the front, the middle, and the back of a horse. And you'd always get a piece of gum, and whatever the pay card would be, it would be over the counter. The bartender or the person who owned the machine would pay you over the counter. Every other symbol is what would fall on the central line. They did that to stimulate you to play more, that you would just miss the one that you were looking for to line up the 3, but in essence you never could get that one. Like here is camels coming up, and it would never fall on camels because it's every other symbol is the one that would activate, would actually click into the machine. If you notice, the symbols are very small. They could have made the symbol, the pack of cigarettes, double the size so that it would just land and be in the full window. What they did is made the symbol smaller so that it would appear that, oh, I just needed that one, but that one would never ever fall because it would always fall above or below the pay line. And they could have made them larger, and on some machines they probably did. You see, I have 2 lucky strikes now. Until I get to the other lucky strike, which is here, would be a win. But the other lucky strike, which is here, coming up now, will never fall here to match up all 3. It'll skip it and go to camels. So the person would see, oh, I just missed it by 1. This machine works on the pump principle, the little pump over here, that when you put the coin in, the length of time that the reels spin is adjusted by this pump. It's like not a vacuum, pressure and piston inside. And whereas this type machine, made by the Pace Company, this one's made by Mills, this one's made by Pace, works all on springs and levers to activate the machine and the amount of time that the wheels would spin. With both machines, every time you push the handle down, it would activate the gum from coming out. Then it would lock so that you couldn't go take another piece of gum. You got the one piece of gum, and you would have to put another coin in to activate the gum mechanism again. That's why they would leave them in the store on consignment, or like on a 60-40 or a 50-50 split, where it didn't cost the candy store man anything to leave it there, and once a month the owner of the route would come empty the machine, load up with other bubble gum, and take the pennies out and divide them up with the candy store man. And then what happened during the years, these machines were then not used, and the route men didn't pick them up, so they were buried in the basement of the stores, and that's where I find them. Or other people find them, and then they call me, and that's how I find them.
The San Francisco earthquake of 1906 destroyed all of the city's slot machine factories and almost all businesses which had machines operating in them. Charles Fay was very fortunate that a nickel and a $5 gold piece were the same size. A pile of gold coins, which had mistakenly been played in his nickel machines, enabled Fay to buy materials for rebuilding. During the reconstruction of San Francisco, the city displayed a laissez-faire attitude towards gambling. But on July 1st, 1909, Ordinance 729 became law, and both payout machines and merchandise machines were completely outlawed. Most cigar stores were forced to close as a result. During this time, the Mills Novelty Company had an advantage because their machine capital was in Chicago. In order to compete, Fay opened a branch office in Chicago and began to sell dice machines like On the Square and On the Level, both of which were copied by Mills. The production of gun vending trade stimulators came as a legal reaction to the anti-gambling laws. Dice machines and horse racing machines were acceptable because they did not pay out in cash, they vended gum.
They made this machine two ways, as a gum vendor and without the gum vendor attachment, which would be all this part not there. The way this thing works, it's a horse race machine. and a gum vendor. You would select a horse that you would want to play. Horses in from 1 to 8. So we'll pick number 4. You put either the penny, nickel, dime, or quarter in this machine. What goes up in there? You squeeze the trigger, and off it goes. The horses go round and round and round and round. There's a ball rolling around, and that would be your odds when it lands as to how much the bartender would hand you over the counter if your horsey came out. We played number 4, and number 4 won. We won!
Well, what did we do?
What did we do? All right, this is where the pointer is, and if you could film on the top, you can see it says number 4 horse, and it came within that area. Okay, number 4 came in, we won. The ball landed over here on 3. So we played a penny, so we get back 3 to 1. Plus, you get a piece of gum. All the time, you get a piece of gum. Now, how would the bartender know that you played number 4? Because after the horse, let's say number 5, all he could do is just switch this to number 5. He would look thusly at the back of the machine, and you can see there's a cutout by the back door. I'll take the back door off because it will be easier. When you play the machine, I broke the part. This piece of glass should be sitting like this. If you see there's numbers on this piece of paper. See the numbers? Mm-hmm. Okay? These numbers go along with each track that is here. When you play a horse, send it down to number 1. So playing the number 1 position, which is over here. Now let's play the 8th position. These are the stones. We go over there, which would be over here, the last position here. After you play the machine, the penny would be lodged here. Can you see the penny? Mm-hmm. So the bartender would know, with the back door on, he'd see through this glass, that you did play the 8 horse. Because he would be facing the back of the machine, you're standing in front of the machine, so he would know if you're lying or not, that you did play the 8 horse. And he'd pay you in the denomination of the coin you played. He'd look here, and he'd see it was a penny. He wouldn't take the glass off, he could see it's a penny. In the back is a horse race machine, horses running around. The glass just came out. Oh, take the glass out. I have 3 pieces of glass. And the horses go running around. And there's a pointer here with this finish line. Over here it says, anti-tip telltale, should be a tilt mechanism. Another rod would go up here that, if you were playing the machine and you wanted to pick the machine up to move the ball over to a 4 or 6 to get better odds, this thing would flop over, and the bartender would know that you picked the machine up and tilted it to avoid your claim to fame.
In the face of the new laws, manufacturers began to attach gum vendors to their machines. The Mill's Liberty Bell Gum Fruit Vendor was one of the first machines to feature a gum vendor on its side, and it also utilized the fruit symbols, which became a standard feature after the production of the operator's bell in 1910. Kelly developed the first built-in gum vendor in their Liberty Bell Gum Vendor. Kelly machines are considered the Cadillac of the coin machine industry. Their machines featured elegance and durability at higher prices than Mill's. New features introduced by Kelly included an automatic percentage device first used in the Kelly Eclipse, and an automatic jackpot feature in the Kelly Twin Centaur. In 1914, Fay and his son Edmund opened the Charles Fay and Son Scale Company. Fay had gone to Chicago to work on a coin-operated scale, and upon returning to San Francisco, he and his son revamped old slots into gum vendors. Prohibition began on August 1st, 1917, and the nation experienced its most dynamic but lawless period. Speakeasies became a refuge for slot machines. The 20s prosperity brought about upgrading denomination in machines. In 1929, Charles Fay and Son developed the silver dollar, the first bell machine to use such denomination. In 1923, cast iron cases were replaced with lighter, rust-proof aluminum. Rolls of candy mints replaced sticks of gum because gum hardened quickly through disuse. The jackpot feature was fully developed in 1928 with the Cayley Superior Jackpot Bell. Now machines without a jackpot were considered obsolete. Cayley's Superior Operator's Bell had a revolutionary escalator revealing the last 4 coins played. The front casting was of a very ornate, naked lady. The golden age of slot machines began in 1931 and lasted a decade. The Mills Silent Bell introduced a new line of quietly operated machines. Each new bell mechanism had a 5-coin anti-slug escalator, and each stressed its own individuality. Mills Novelty sold 40,000 machines in 1932 despite the Depression. The Silent Gooseneck Superior Bell, which was nicknamed the Lion's Head or Wolf's Head, sold for $68.50 in 1932. The Jennings Company copied the Mills Silent Bell by producing the Victoria Silent Bell, which had an improved mechanism quieted by rubber bumpers. The Jennings Little Duke had 3 flat circular reels. The Roman Head was named for Chicago's Century of Progress World's Fair and was followed by the Chief Bell. Cayley reacted to Mills' Silent Bell by reworking their Superior Jackpot Bell into the Silent Sphinx Bell. Tom Watling was a friend of Charles Fay, who began the Watling Manufacturing Company in 1920. Watling produced cheaper copies of Mills and Cayley machines. Watling began a Blue Seal line of machines, which had high-quality painted casings. The Twin Jackpot, Gold Award, and Wonder Bell were such machines. The most popular Watling machine was his 1935 Rollator, which had a large rotary escalator. The name had to be changed because there was a washing machine called the Rollator, so the following year, Rollatop machines were introduced. After Prohibition, slot machines became a matter of controversy because they were considered an asset of organized crime. Raids of machines became a public event, particularly for Mayor LaGuardia of New York City. The raids of the 1930s seemed to come from the periodic whim of politicians and the police. It was dramatic to dump slot machines into the ocean.
This machine is a Mills torch gun. The mechanism isn't here, but the cabinet and the plates are here. This was made between 1925 and 1935 by the Mills Novelty Company. These machines paid off maximum 20 coins on the 3-bar payoff. If you got 3 bars, you also got what money was accumulated in the jackpot. But all these early machines would have coinage. These 20 coins. It was a penny machine, be 20 pennies. Nickels, 20 nickels. These were all mechanical machines. No electricity, no solid state. The machines they're using nowadays have unlimited payoffs. Maximum is 200 coins. Some machines can even kick back 500 coins. Where the maximum was 20 coins on any of the machines. We have a Mills machine, Jennings, Watling, Pace. Those were the earlier companies that started this shtick with slot machines. They barely brought out everybody and consolidated everything, and now Bailey's in charge of running it. Some of them had, this model didn't run a $50 machine, and those that are coming in, were skeptical about buying them because it would be the same size as the English penny. And a lot of hanky-panky was going on with bringing English machines in and converting them to American $50, and they didn't use $50 on these type machines. On the big upright machines, they had some that were $50, but the main coinage was nickels. That was the big money in those days. Yeah, it was quite depressing, the Depression. And that's what they did. They made them so pretty, though, like all this ornateness and the scroll work on the top of the casting and on the front. This is all embedded in the casting. And the same thing like with the earlier cash registers. They look prettier. Now everything's plastic and chrome and more plastic. And the cast iron machines beside them were also cast iron, and there was cheaper tin wood, and they called it the wooden sides with the cast aluminum fronts. At the beginning they used wooden sides with cast iron fronts, and then they got rid of the cast iron and they went to aluminum, which was an easy material, and I guess the discovery of aluminum and it was a lighter machine. And we were there. You can figure out what's on here. And that's what they did. And that's the story, and we're stuck with it.
In 1942, the production of slot machines ceased for the duration of the war. Between 1945 and 1951, a renewal of production began with the revamping of the pre-war chrome bell into the Mills Black Cherry. Mills expanded its high-top line in 1947 with the Jewel Bell. High tops had the same mechanisms as pre-war machines, with higher casings. The Jennings Bronze Chief was updated in 1946 to the Standard Chief and the Super Deluxe Club Chief, which was illuminated. The Jennings Sun Chief had large lighted plastic panels on both sides of the bottom casing, and a new wheel strip variation with tic-tac-toe combinations. The successful crackdown on slot machines eventually led to the Johnson Act of 1951, which prevented interstate shipment of machines. This federal law was the final blow to the slot machine industry. In 1962, Nevada legalized gambling. In 1976, New Jersey legalized gambling in Atlantic City. Aside from these places, coin-operated gambling devices are considered antiques. The aesthetic quality of machines has changed drastically from the unique cast aluminum machines of the 1930s to the electronic machines of today. The American fascination with coin-operated machines continues. Las Vegas and Atlantic City draw thousands of people who gamble daily. The cradle of the slot machine industry was San Francisco. The gold rush attracted thousands of people from the East. One inventor who was drawn by the permissive climate of San Francisco was a German immigrant named Charles Fay. Gustav Schultz was another German immigrant who had received an early patent for counter-wheel payout machines in August 1893. In 1895, Fay invented the first floor model slot machine, which he named the 41144. In 1896, Fay went on to establish his own slot machine factory. He began producing coin-operated machines, which he franchised to saloons and cigar stores. Fay created the first cash-paying poker machine, named the Card Bell, which he later revamped into the Liberty Bell. This three-reel machine grew so popular in 1897 that its name became synonymous with the term slot machine. Within 30 years, 1 million machines were operating throughout the world. The popularity of the bell slot came from a suspense factor induced by watching 3 reels stop in succession. It had 10 symbols per reel, creating 1,000 possible combinations. The largest win was a combination of 3 Liberty Bells, which paid out $2 in nickels. Only 3 of these machines are known to exist today. Floor model slot machines were fashioned in oak cabinets with nickel-plated castings and a brightly colored payout wheel. These machines had a voracious appetite of 5 to 10 coins. The first of these floor models was the Mills Vending Company's single-coin Kalamazoo and the 5-coin Owl. Herbert Mills recognized the lure of gambling machines in saloons and cigar stores, so he began to manufacture his own versions of phase machines. His Chicago factory produced 100 machines daily, and by 1927 was one of the largest factories in the country. The Mills Liberty Bell was a copy of Fay's basic mechanism with a few cosmetic changes. It had a more ornate cast iron case, larger reels to incorporate 20 symbols instead of 10, and an enlarged payout window that showed 9 symbols instead of 3. Mills's success lay behind his sales through advertising and his low prices. The Cayley brothers of Detroit manufactured high-quality machines like the 6-coin floor machine called the Puck in 1899. Watling, Jennings, Pace, and Bailey were other companies which joined the flowering slot machine industry. Most companies had branch offices in cities like San Francisco, where the popularity of coin-operated machines was beginning to be considered a problem. The moral descent against gambling in San Francisco began as early as 1893, when a $3 quarterly tax and license requirement was enacted. An 1898 ordinance separated cigar machines from amusement machines and outlawed machines which paid out in money. Operators circumvented the law by substituting payouts in trade checks redeemable in merchandise. These small countertop machines became known as trade stimulators.
Not all machines have fruit symbols. Some machines, trade stimulators, came with cigarette symbols, and they correspond to the pay card of cigarettes. These type machines would be in candy stores or tobacco stores. And when people got change from whatever they bought, they would put the penny in the trade stimulator. They would always get a piece of gum that you don't eat, and you would look at the reels, and if the 3 types of cigarettes would line up, you would read the pay card, like 3 Lucky Strikes. The bartender or Candy Snowman would give you a pack of Lucky Strikes or Camels, or the bottom one is Spud cigarettes. You get 10 packs. They would give 10 packs because there was probably one symbol of Spud cigarettes on each reel, and that's why it would be harder to get. The same thing like with a full-size slot machine, getting the 3 bars across. These didn't vend money at all, only gum. They were called trade stimulators to stimulate trade. They were made out of cast aluminum, both of them, and they came with fruit symbols or with cigarette symbols. They've also had them with, these are with 3 reels on them. They have them with 5 reels on them, and the tapes on that would be a girl's name that you would try to spell out, or horses, and you try to put the pieces of the horse together, the front, the middle, and the back of the horse. And you'd always get a piece of gum, and whatever the pay card would be, it would be over the counter. The bartender or the person who owned the machine would pay you over the counter. Every other symbol is what would fall on the center line. They did that to stimulate you to play more, that you would just miss the one that you were looking for to line up the 3, but in essence you never could get that one. If you notice, the symbols are very small. They could have made the symbol, the pack of cigarettes, double the size so that it would just land and be in the full window. What they did is made the symbol smaller so that it would appear that, oh, I just needed that one, but that one would never ever fall, because it would always fall above or below the pay line.
The San Francisco earthquake of 1906 destroyed all of the city's slot machine factories. and almost all businesses which had machines operating in them. During the reconstruction of San Francisco, the city displayed a laissez-faire attitude towards gambling. But on July 1st, 1909, Ordinance 729 became law, and both payout machines and merchandise machines were completely outlawed. Most cigar stores were forced to close as a result. The production of gum vending trade stimulators came as a legal reaction to the anti-gambling laws. Dice machines and horse racing machines were acceptable because they did not pay out in cash, they vended gum. In the face of the new laws, manufacturers began to attach gum vendors to their machines. The Mills Liberty Bell Gum Fruit Vendor was one of the first machines to feature a gum vendor on its side, and it also utilized the fruit symbols, which became a standard feature after the production of the operator's bell in 1910. The golden age of slot machines began in 1931 and lasted a decade. The Mills Silent Bell introduced a new line of quietly operated machines. Each new bell mechanism had a 5-coin anti-slug escalator, and each stressed its own individuality. Mills Novelty sold 40,000 machines in 1932 despite the Depression. The silent gooseneck superior bell, which was nicknamed the Lion's Head or Wolf's Head, sold for $68.50 in 1932. After Prohibition, slot machines became a matter of controversy because they were considered an asset of organized crime. Raids of machines became a public event, particularly for Mayor LaGuardia of New York City. The raids of the 1930s seemed to come from the periodic whim of politicians and the police. It was dramatic to dump slot machines into the ocean.
They made them still pretty though, like all this ornateness and the scroll work on the top of the casting and on the front. This is all embedded in the casting. And the same thing like with the earlier cash registers. They look pretty, and now everything is plastic and chrome and more plastic. On the cast iron machines, the sides were also cast iron, and it was cheaper to use wood, and they called it wooden sides with cast aluminum fronts. At the beginning, they used wooden sides with cast iron fronts, and then they got rid of the cast iron, and they went to aluminum, which was the easier material, and I guess the discovery of aluminum, and it was a lighter machine to move around. You can pick it up with one hand. And that's what they did. And that's the story, and we're stuck with it.
In 1942, the production of slot machines ceased for the duration of the war. Between 1945 and 1951, a renewal of production began with the revamping of the pre-war chrome bell into the Mills Black Cherry. Mills expanded its high-top line in 1947 with the Jewel Bell. High tops had the same mechanisms as pre-war machines, with higher casings. The Jennings Bronze Chief was updated in 1946 to the Standard Chief and the Super Deluxe Club Chief, which was illuminated. The Jennings Sun Chief had large lighted plastic panels on both sides of the bottom casing, and a new reel strip variation with tic-tac-toe combinations. The successful crackdown on slot machines eventually led to the Johnson Act of 1951, which prevented interstate shipment of machines. This federal law was the final blow to the slot machine industry. In 1962, Nevada legalized gambling. In 1976, New Jersey legalized gambling in Atlantic City. Aside from these places, coin-operated gambling devices are considered antiques. The aesthetic quality of machines has changed drastically from the unique cast aluminum machines of the 1930s to the electronic machines of today. The American fascination with coin-operated machines continues. Las Vegas and Atlantic City draw thousands of people to gamble daily.